What is up, everybody? Thanks so much for clicking on the podcast and checking us out. This is the Movies That Make You podcast, where movies are more than just entertainment. They're a catalyst for meaningful conversations. My name is Jonathan Sprang, and I go by Sprang. And here, each week, we dive into movies and we find the deeper meanings, the life lessons we can learn from them. Usually, it's me and my sons. We talk through movies that are coming out, gearing up for a movie that might be releasing this week. This week is a little different because we've got a special guest on. We're going to talk about Southpaw and Hands of Stone. Our guest is a boxer. He's a trainer, and we're excited to hear his story. You're going to love it. We got so deep on these movies. We had so many great quotes, and he dropped some knowledge on us. So I wanted to let you know, if you're a first timer, we're so glad that you're here. Thanks so much. Be sure to check us out on Instagram at Movies That Make You. You can also follow us on Letterboxd. That's where we have all of our lists. So the movies that make you laugh, the movies that make you cry, the movies that make you smile, the movies that make you cheer, like today's episode. You can find all those lists there. And we hope that you'll do that. Subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff. It helps us out. We'll just love to have you join us along the journey. Instagram is where you're going to find out what's going on, what's coming up next. You get little clips throughout the week of the podcast, so you can kind of get a little glimpse at what we talked about if you haven't checked it out yet. We drop episodes every Monday, and this one is no different. So glad that you've joined us. Before we dive into this week's episode, I do want to let you know about what we got coming up on the podcast. Next Monday, we've got an episode on the movie Twister, because Twisters is coming out the following week. We're excited. We actually have Kristen on the episode and all the boys, and we talk through that movie. Very impactful for Kristen. I really liked it as well, and this is the first time the boys have watched it, so a lot of fun. The week after that, movie Deadpool and Wolverine is coming out, and so we're going to talk through all things X-Men and Deadpool. So we rewatched the Deadpool movies for the episode, and we'll talk through also some of the X-Men, some of the places we've seen Wolverine before, but that's going to be super epic. The week after that, we've got Scream. Jacob and I went and saw a special screening at Alamo Drafthouse in Las Colinas a few weeks ago. And then we met a guy there that we just talked to and hung out with, and he joined the podcast, and we just have a great conversation about the movie Scream and about horror movies in general, but really focused on that. So that'll be fun. The week following that, we're doing an episode on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. We watched the original 90s movie and Mutant Mayhem, and all of that is because they're actually doing a new animated series on streaming that launches that week. So we hope that you'll join us for that episode. So that's what we got coming up. Let's go ahead and get to the podcast today. Thanks for joining. We are back for another episode of the Movies That Make You podcast. We're gonna title this one "The Movies That Make You Cheer," because this is a boxing episode, and we are excited to talk about these movies that definitely got us out of our seats, screaming, shouting, cheering, everything, not just from the boxing, but from the emotional impact and the storyline, all that stuff. As usual, I am Sprang, and we are joined by a special guest today, Nick Hot Cold Shephard. What's up, man?
What's up, Jonathan, man? How's your day going so far?
It's going good, man. It's going good. It's been a busy week, but excited to kind of have the holiday tomorrow with July 4th, and so that'll be a fun time with the family for sure.
Absolutely,
what about you?
Man.
You got anything going on tomorrow?
Man, there's a fight going down tomorrow, which will be his own set of fireworks, man. I was originally planning on attending it, but I won't be attending it. I'm going to get a little cool off, relax as a coach, and go to Hurricane Harbor and go sit down in that lazy river and just float for the day.
I like that, man. I like that. That's one place we haven't gone with the boys yet, so we'll have to hit that place up though for sure. Because I remember as a teenager loving to go to like Wet and Wild. That's the one we had in Florida. Similar thing for the Hurricane Harbor, but very, very cool, man. So Nick and I met because of my wife, actually. So my wife, she coaches part-time at a gym called F45 in Richardson, Texas. And she got me into working out over there and been having some good success, some good progress. And then they got this new coach in. Coach Nick came in and just amped it up, just got the energy going. And we hit it off really well. I told him that we had the podcast and all that stuff. And then I actually heard Kristen told me that you didn't just coach at F45, but you coach boxing as well. Tell us a little bit about that. How'd you get into that?
Yes, sir. Well, for myself, I've been boxing for over, actually, it's crazy to say, it's about to go on actually 13 years now. So I've been boxing since the age of 13. I'm currently 26, man. So I just fell in love with the sport, man, of just out of raw wanting to win, just being a natural competitive, man. I got into it because I got in a little trouble back in the day, just feeling like you're the toughest man in the land. And my dad actually called the boxing gym beforehand, and he was like, "Hey, I need you to have your best fighter in this gym today, so because I got something to prove to my son." So took me to the gym, man, and that guy whooped me from left to right, man. It was one of those days, but I got up and I told him, "I'm going to be here every day until I'm good enough to beat you, and I'm going to learn, I'm going to study you until I know exactly what you want to do every time." And that was just my driving fire that sparked it. And after that, I fell in love with boxing.
Dude, that's amazing. What a great story. Like, and I think that speaks to your heart. And I think that's what sometimes people don't understand about kids that kind of get into trouble sometimes, is that there's something in there that's driving them, and that drove you to like want to succeed and want to be bigger, want to be better, all that stuff. That's something that if directed in the right way ends up being a huge positive. But too many times, I think as parents, sometimes we have a tendency, I know I have in the past, to kind of tell them to stop or get them in trouble or sit them down and put them in timeout and all that stuff. But it's actually, I love that story that your dad said, we're going to actually put this into a positive direction. We're going to try to find a spot that you can succeed. And man, that's exciting.
Absolutely, man. I fell in love with it, man. Like you said, not just for because I used to be so angry, but it taught me the complete opposite of anger. It taught me discipline, how to stay a little bit calmer, how to stay relaxed, how to know that everything is not in my control. And that's one of the most important lessons I learned in boxing is I could try to control the tempo of the fight, but I won't always have 100% of control. It's okay to release that control sometimes, but always try to regain it. So that taught me so much, man. Mentally made me far beyond my years.
Dude, I mean, just that. I mean, we could stop the podcast right now because that's what they say. That'll preach, man.
Yeah,
That is like such a powerful lesson to learn, that you can't control everything. I think, man, I just think about all the things we try to control in life, and like recognizing that at the age of 13, kind of getting on that journey to where you are now. I mean, that's a great lesson to learn at your young age, because I'm definitely older than you. I'm pushing about 20 years older than you, and it took me a long time to learn that lesson. So that's amazing, what you've learned from the sport. So tell us a little bit about like what you do now as far as the coaching. Like, how do you coach? You have a gym. You also compete. I'm guessing, right? So like, tell us a little bit about that. How that works for you.
absolutely, man. So I actually was boxing, and I realized that boxing was told to me was to be a broke man sport, that a broke man could do it. But now it's not that in your days. You got gloves that cost $250. You got equipment that cost so and so, man. So I just was working my tail off, still trying to box and still trying to make everything happen. I was doing simple jobs like UPS, at home deliveries. And my friend told me, he said, "Hey man, like, you're hating these jobs, you're miserable, you're finding time to go to work afterwards and still go train right behind that." He said, "You're burning yourself out." He said, at this time, I believe I was around 19. He said, "Man, you have 6 years of boxing to put on your resume compared to your 4 years of work that you've done so far." He said, "Have you ever put anything boxing wise on your resume?" I said, "No, I haven't." Then I thought about it. I said, "Why wouldn't I try?" I put a boxing on my resume, just 6 years, and everything I did in the boxing gym had a gym call me literally in 18 hours. 18,
Wow.
they was giving me a call like, "Hey, we want to give you an opportunity as a trainer." So my first official job as a boxing trainer was 9 round kickboxing.
Okay.
So I started working for 9 round, and that actually made me learn kickboxing as well with the boxing. So it taught me just the overall skill set of coaching, just that confidence. Like when people want to be trained, they want to be trained. They want somebody to say, hey, pick up something heavier. Hey, tell me what to do, because I don't necessarily have the mental capacity to force myself to do it right now. So it just taught me a little bit more grit in my approach as a trainer.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. I mean, I've been going to the gym now since about Thanksgiving, so pushing up on 6 months. Well, I guess it's been more than 6 months now, so that's like 8 months. And I'm still finding myself in a position where if I go up in weight, I feel like there's still room to go because I'm always nervous to go for that heavier weight. I'm always nervous to push that little extra out. And I feel like I feel like the last couple of weeks I've been going more regularly, and I'm just I really am trying to push myself instead of rely on the coach for that. But the coach is always there also to help encourage. So if I am doing something that they know I'm pushing myself, and so they're going to give me that accolade, or they're going to give me that motivation to like, yeah, good job, nice work, because they see the progress and the way I'm going. But I in the last few weeks I've been like, how heavy can I go? Like how? But it took that 6 to 8 months to get myself to the confidence level where that was something I could actually see. And just something very simple. I've never been confident to even do one push up, let alone 10 or 20. And today, after the workout, I'm like, I'm bragging to Kristen about how, man, I did that the push up variation today, and I did it full push-ups the whole time, and actually went
Right.
down to my chest. Like I didn't stop. Like I went all the way down to my chest, touched the floor, and I was like, watch. And so I get on the floor and
Right.
I did 5 push-ups right then and there, or maybe 10. I did 10 push-ups right there. And then she said, hey, my mom was in town. I just flew her back, but put her back on the plane. But Kristen's like, hey, mom, you should see this. So I just dropped down and did 10 more. Like
Okay.
I've never in my life been able to do that. And it's just been to the point where I feel better. I feel more healthy. I feel stronger. I feel more confident just as a person. I mean, all those things, it all kind of comes out. And when you get into some sort of training regimen, and I've never been somebody that went to the gym. I was always scared to, because I grew up very thin and very weak. I felt like I'm just a tall, skinny dude. I ain't got no muscles. I'm going to get picked on. I'm going to get laughed at. Like all of those negative things that go into your mind. But I can tell you, like going to this gym at 45, I felt very much welcomed. I felt very much a part of things. And especially with the coaches, you included, man, like when you come around and you kind of tell me to do something different or like tweak it to make it better. Like I want to do them right, so it's pretty fun.
Absolutely. I'm gonna speak on that before we branch off the subject. The best compliment that I got from somebody was in the same realm as yours. The overall confidence within yourself increases. There was a car salesman. He told me, hey man, I'm selling 10 times more cars because I'm hearing you in my head throughout the day now. Like, hey, you could do some more. Like, hey, you're not done. It's more, we want results. So he's like, you don't just train me in the gym, you train me mentally to be prepared for life. And that's one of the greatest compliments I had as a trainer.
Bro, that's awesome, man. That is so cool. That is what a great compliment. I totally relate to that. So very cool, man. Well, we are going to jump into talking about a couple of movies. We got a couple of boxing movies that we watched specifically for this podcast. So we're going to get to those in just a moment. But before we get into those specific ones, those movies being Southpaw and Hands of Stone, what are some other boxing movies that really resonate with you when you kind of were growing up and stuff?
Man, one of my classic was Mike Tyson's biopic, man. It was just a classic. Just seeing him have to go stay with his trainer. His mom is drugged out and she passes, and he's just fighting for his life, man, and just really trying to make a way. And every Mike Tyson story, man, these boxers, I feel like every boxer needs their own biopic.
Mm-hmm.
Totally off alone of how tough it really is to be an actual fighter. Like, you have to fight life in somebody else at the same time just to live life.
Mhm.
That's a quote right there. That's a
Yeah.
quote right there. But overall, I like Mike Tyson's original biopic. Another classic that I will always go back to. It's not necessarily a boxing movie, man, but it's one of my all time movies, man. And it's a sports movie though. Is Remember the Titans, man. That was man. Remember the Titans is always just a show of brotherhood and grit. If everybody has the same objective and same thing they want to accomplish, I love that movie.
That's amazing. I think if I were to talk about boxing, and definitely, I mean, for me, Rocky stands out because
Oh,
I was at that age where Rocky Four had, I think, come out recently, and I just, man, he defeated communism, man, with the boxing ring, like all that stuff.
but
Uh,
now think about the same storylines that we just watched, even with Hands of Stone, is similar to where these figures in boxing all became activists for their own country or region. And in a lot of ways, with every country, they have their famous boxer that they feel really showed them as a warrior because boxing is a gladiator sport. So you have this person that needs to step up and say, "Hey, I'm a warrior and I'm going to represent my country like so." So then you have all that pressure on your back as well.
yeah, it's wild, man. It's wild, and I think one of the other sports movies kind of get out of boxing that I grew up watching was The Natural. Do you
Mm.
ever see that one? Robert Redford.
Yes, sir.
He plays a baseball player, and he's just this kind of just phenom hitter, and it just like the music was just beautiful. It ends with this crazy, home run that he breaks the lights and all the lights sparkle. And it's like fireworks, and it's just. But as like if I were to watch it now, I'd be like, man, this movie is so slow. This movie is so like it's so long. But man, when I was a kid, it was one that I remember watching with my dad before he passed, and it was just like one of those great movies and so emotional. But it's like 2.5 hour movie.
Mm.
But man, it's good. It's another one that kind of gets me in the feels for sure. So
I didn't even realize it was that long. Now I think about it, it's kind of a long movie.
for sure. Well, let's jump into the two we're talking about.
Yeah,
Of course,
start
we're
off
talking about Go
first.
ahead.
That's my guy. We have to start off with Hands of Stone.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Tell us about it. What's the story?
Man, so Hands of Stone, we're focused on Roberto the Ram, man. His overall, let's get on to him himself, man. His overall record is 119 fights. In those 119 fights, he won 103 fights. 103 fights. He lost 16. Now, I believe we're in this era where everybody feels like they can't necessarily take a loss, but this is that era where you can go lose and prove that you're still the best of the best by saying, let's fight again. Let's fight again. So most of you that love boxing will know about his famous rematch with Sugar Ray. But we'll get into that later. We're just gonna tell you about Roberto a little bit more about itself. His nickname, name of the movie as well, Hands of Stone, man. That was his nickname for a reason. That man had a mean right and a mean left. And no matter which one came, they always gonna hurt, man. He was quick too. Fast on his feet, nice and smooth through a lot of punches. He threw in a lot of volume. So overall, that's a little bit about the movie, just of the subject of the movie, but not in full, man.
Yeah, for sure. Man, that's awesome. I know that the movie kind of talked a little bit about that. So he's got his Panama coach, basically built him up to where he feels like I can't take you any further. We got to bring somebody else in. So they bring in Robert De Niro, which I thought was amazing to have an Oscar caliber actor in there playing this trainer. Who he has his whole other backstory about dealing with the mob and all that stuff, but he gets the opportunity to train this guy. And he does. He takes him to the top of the world and to compete for the world championship and all that stuff. He meets the love of his life along the way. And then, of course, it's kind of similar to Rocky, like we talked about just a minute ago. He has some success, he gets some money, and then he just immediately starts giving back and everything. But then it's also that pressure of the family, the pressure to succeed, the pressure to get back out there and fight. And I think one of the other things that's interesting, it reminded me a little bit of like Rocky 3, to where Rocky's on that championship tour, but Mickey doesn't want to give him any fights that he's going to lose. So he just kind of gives him these tough fights. And then you got Clubber Lang coming in and saying, why only fight me? I'm the best fighter. So there's a little bit of that on the other side, because I think De Niro's character, the trainer, he's wanting to protect him, but he's like, let me just go after this guy. He's like, you ain't ready yet. You ain't ready, you know? So there's a little bit of that kind of like the balancing of the trying to compete at the highest level, but also recognizing like you got to have time to recover. You got to put yourself into some easy wins, possibly to kind of just keep yourself fast and quick, but you don't want to have every single fight be one that's going to be to the death, because it's just like you're just going to waste away. It's what it felt like a little bit in the movie.
Absolutely. I want to speak on the actual first coach. This was one of my favorite parts. It seems so simple, but it was so subtle if you really understand it as a coach. When he was younger, he told the coach, he said, I'll learn anything as long as you give me ice cream. So
Yeah.
So now, if you think about this, this is his play into making him have a little bit more discipline, because overall he's learning this for ice cream, but his ultimate goal is going to have to learn discipline. You can't always have the things you want in life. So again, when we go into a little bit more of the middle of the movie, he's overweight, he's eating so much. Now he has to go into this big fight again, overweight. Why? Because he's that love of ice cream. So now that subtle little emotion and that gesture, and to throw that in there spoke so much to me, because okay, are you willing to learn for the ice cream, but can you learn without it now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think learning the discipline, right? It's the as a child, you can burn off those calories fast, but as you get older, you got to learn, you got to be more disciplined with how you celebrate. I remember, yeah, the first fight we saw him fight and win, he's got all 32 flavors of ice cream, right? And then it does the flashback and tells you where the ice cream came from. But yeah, I mean, it's just crazy to kind of see him fight, and have to get to that point again after losing, after being overweight, to then try to get back to that championship weight.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. So how many times did he fight Sugar Ray?
Twice.
Twice.
I got the
Nice.
question. Well, if you are a fighter, what is your pre-fight meal and what is your post-fight meal? What are you going with?
Oh man, it's hard to say,
I,
because for pre-fight, like I'm thinking like something super. Well, no, because you trim down and then you got to bulk up, right? So you
but you
need
have
something.
to fight right behind that meal.
Right. So it's got to be something for me. I feel like it's got to be something that's not going to sit heavy. So I'm thinking like, I don't know. I just think chicken and broccoli. Like that's what comes to my mind. Like just beef, just bulking up on that kind of just lean meat and all that stuff. But the post fight's definitely going to be some Popeyes chicken.
You get to
Like
throw that's like your victory meal. Like Ivan, like even people that lose, they just still have a victory post-fight meal, because they like Ivan is starving. I get to find.
hmm
So my pre-fight meal, usually I always go with grits, like something hearty but can get out of me real quick, and some turkey bacon. I always like, hey, everybody's like, what do you want to eat? Find me some grits, some nice good grits. Post-fight, that's I can't even go into imagine, because I crave everything doing those weight cuts. So I'd be like, man. But the craziest thing, I was just speaking with my girlfriend about it as well. You want all this stuff, and after the fight, you take 4 bites, and your appetite's like, I am full. Like
Yeah.
big old burger and fries. I ate like 3 fries, and I put the burger in the skull box. I was
Yeah.
like, you want so much stuff, but you can't eat it.
Yeah. I'd have to say some fried spicy wings, some buffalo wings from a wing shop. That would be another one for me. I just love that the crispiness and the spice, all that stuff. So that's my go-to. Like any kind of celebration, if it's not a steak, it's gonna be some wings. So that's like how I celebrate.
Now I want to touch on just his coach, Robert De Niro. Basically, man, he was a great philosopher in this movie. They made him the perfect coach in my eyes. I really felt like they highlighted the importance of being a gentle coach, but having to dominate and be a strong-minded man when you needed to. One of my most important things that I really asked myself out of this whole movie from the beginning is, would I be able to train a prospect fighter for absolutely free?
Mm,
Well, I
yeah.
invest so much time out of my day to this person for the hopes of him possibly doing something big in the boxing world. And I honestly can tell the honest truth, I would. If I see any potential and they're willing to work hard for it, I will absolutely put all my time I possibly have into making the next champ. But they have to really prove that to me.
Mm-hmm. I feel the same way when it comes to any career. If you think about like taking a pay cut or working for less than you're worth, like when you can see the potential and the opportunity, I'm also at the point where there are times where I'm willing to do it for less money. I'm willing to I'm willing to take that temporary pay cut. I'm willing to do those things because I know that this situation or this opportunity is going to lead to success. We got a good trajectory. We got all the right pieces in place. It's just the money's not there. So if we keep working hard and we keep doing what we're doing, then eventually believing and trusting that it's going to turn out well, and then that reward is going to come because of the hard work that we put in. But trying not to let money be the deterrent, recognizing that sometimes there's more value in opportunity and the pieces at play than it is in the actual cash that you would be getting. Because you could take a high-paying job and you'd be done in months because you're over it and the culture was bad or the situation was bad, but you got paid a lot. Well, but it didn't set you up to succeed. Where if you work over here where you see that potential and you know you have a chance to succeed in the future, it's putting your eggs in that basket. And that's tough. That's tough to kind of teach to our kids. Like we know, like we've talked to a lot with our boys about that, like deferred gratification. Like there's a study out there, and it went around the internet a while back, but it was basically like they take these kids, they put them in a room, they give them a marshmallow, and they say, "Hold on right there," and then if they don't eat the marshmallow, then they get another marshmallow or something. It's like basically like trust it, but then there's some kids that just eat the marshmallow because they want the marshmallow or the cookie or whatever the training is, whether the experiment is. But it's like we've got some kids that some of our boys would go, yeah, I want that cookie right now. Even if I tell them, hey, if you wait, you can have more. There's still that drive, like that for whatever reason they want to get that instant gratification. So it's about training and teaching them like, hey, we can't. There's a lot of times where we need to look to the future and see that there's better things in the future if we can just hold off a little, be patient a little bit right now. You could get more out of it down the road. Kind of comes to money also, like trying to teach how do you manage your money. Like you have your birthday, you get your allowance. Do you run immediately to the store and spend it all on junk food and candy? Or do you hold on to it and save it, and then you can get something bigger in the future? We got one kid that saved up and bought a computer for like $2,000 over the course of 2 years. We got one kid that just had his birthday. His birthday money's already spent like a week later, right? So it's just difference in personality, but seeing the value of kind of trying to be patient for that future goal. It's similar to that idea of trying to put yourself in a position where you can see that potential versus just being in a situation where you feel like you can get that instant reward. So
Absolutely.
cool. Anything else about Hands of Stone you want to touch on?
Yeah, I got a couple. I wanted to touch on just a couple of the general topics and some quotes that he put out as a coach that really spoke. I was doing that running scene a little bit in the beginning, and he explained that technique and strategy go hand in hand. Like you cannot go in there and fight with a good strategy unless you have a good technique on the old backhand with it, as well as the opposite way. Another thing that he said that really spoke out to me, he said you need to be the host of the ring. And I tell everybody you need to be able to control the ring when you can. You're the host, they're in there with you. Also, you need to be a master of time. And last but not least, you need to control the tempo. You decide if you want to go fast, you decide if you want to go slow. Ultimately, you need to have the remote in your hands. Literally, the remotes are in your hands, you control everything. And I believe that alone showed like how good of a coach you really have to be, because you really have to tell these people these things, but you got to say it in such a strong way that it sticks with them forever. And those were words that stuck with me. And I can still remember my coach telling me, hey, be calm, be patient, slow down, don't go for the hard shot. It's a point system. Simple things like that is things you have to keep saying to them every day that they're training. And I believe they mastered that to exact extent, showing how good of a coach that you need to be to get an actual championship fighter.
That's amazing. Those are some great quotes, and I think that speaks to the value of what I think I've heard it said, like a pithy phrase. The value of that alliteration, the value of that rhyme, and that way of speaking is that it sticks with you, and it's something you can remember quick. And if you give the proper coaching around the line, because you can come up with any phrase and make it mean something, but like making it mean something is where the value comes in. But then it's something that's repeatable. It's something that's memorable. It's something that kind of sticks with you. That goes to any kind of public speaking, any kind of managing of people. If you're dealing with people, you're trying to train something, you're trying to teach something, finding those phrases that can kind of hammer home the point makes it just memorable and makes it applicable for sure. Right. That's amazing. I got to say, another thing I want to say about this movie is stars Edgar Ramirez, Robert De Niro, Ana de Armas, and then Usher. I was super impressed with his performance, man.
Bro,
he did such a good job, and it was interesting because when he first comes on the screen, they had to do the higher forehead, and I was like, it took Kristen and I a little bit to realize, oh, that's Usher, just because we're so used to how he normally looks, but man, I got to tell you, like, I was super impressed with his performance, from everything from the the in the ring stuff, but the being the cocky guy, being the guy that's kind of humbled, all that stuff, like trying to put on a good face. Like, I could see all of that working on the inside of his head, like when he's trying to hold his cool, trying to take those jokes, trying to take those shots, those verbal shots, and try to remain calm. But then also when he has to turn around and turn up the heat and all that stuff.
Absolutely. He did an amazing job, and they got him in amazing shape for that. I also wanted to speak on that as well. It's just like the importance of staying out of your head in boxing. It's so crazy how much you can drive yourself to do the wrong things if you let so much negative energy come in. So just keeping positive energy is so that, like, if you just stay positive and you don't let somebody come in and physically throw you off your own game, you can fight your own fight and do exactly what you need to do. But man, trash talking, I love it. I'm sorry. I'm just one of those boxing fans that loves the build up of the fight. You can fight boring as possible, but if you build it up and make me want to tune in, you did what you need to do.
So that's interesting too, because you're bringing to mind like that moment when he kind of takes it too far, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a point where he takes it too far, and Sugar Ray, like, it turned Sugar Ray up, and he was like ready to pound him. And he said at one point, he's like, I'll apologize to her, but I'm not apologizing to you.
Right.
It's like this idea where he knows he probably stepped over the line, but he's not going to apologize to Sugar Ray because that was part of the build-up, part of the fight. Do you have a line like that where you feel like that there's a certain level that you won't go over, or do you feel like, no, it's a fight, it's part of the build-up, and I'm gonna try to do whatever I can to get this fighter off his game?
Or I think it's all of who are you fighting? Like, it's can't you get away with certain people you was talk to a certain way, and certain people, they just gonna take it how they want to take it and move around. Certain people may actually come take it outside of
Yeah.
So it is, man. I believe everybody has a limit where okay, if I say this, I may be crossing the line. Some people are a little bit more broader than the others. I think mine is like, I'm gonna talk some trash about you, but I won't bring your kids. I won't bring your mom. I won't bring anybody that you care about involved, because they're not the ones gonna fight. I'm gonna dig up my research and do my dirt on you. But at the same time, it was a mindset thing. He knew, if I do this, if I say these exact words, he's gonna want in there and he's gonna come in the ring and try to kill me instead of trying to box me. And then just throw somebody out. Simple as that. I want him to be as angry as possible when he steps in his ring, because guess what? Boxing, everything he trained, the moment he sees me standing in front of him, all that's going out the window, because now he's like, I gotta fight him.
Yeah, that's amazing. That kind of brings images to me of another boxing movie, Ali, and how the build up of the Rumble in the Jungle of like George Foreman being this huge powerhouse and this huge puncher, and Ali being the leaner fighter, and how is he going to stand in the ring with Foreman? And then like even to the point in the movie, it kind of displayed it like Ali was kind of keeping everything close to the vest, and his trainers didn't know, and nobody knew what he was going to do in the ring. And then he coined the phrase "rope a dope" by him just kind of taking all the shots, and then George Foreman gassing himself, and then he's just an easy target. That kind of comes to mind. Like he knew what George Foreman was going to come in there and do, and he had mentally prepared himself, and obviously he'd prepared his body to take the damage, because ain't nobody just going to walk in off the street and take a punch from George Foreman. Like you have to have trained for that. So I think there's definitely a lot to the game of boxing, the sport of boxing, being that kind of that chess match, kind of like you were talking about with the coaching, the strategy and the technique working hand in hand. It's a chess match. It's not checkers. It's not a street brawl. It's not a schoolyard fight, man. It's a sport beyond like any other box, like any other sport. Like it takes a lot of precision. So that's amazing.
Right before we get off of just this general movie, because I just watched it and fall in love again. So I got just the overall depression rate of fighters as well, man. It is serious, man. Especially that's a little bit in the beginning phase. So we don't have the social media or anything, but now these people can go online and read thousands of comments of people just calling them a trash can, or that they don't know how to fight, or they should have did this and this. They was like, hey man, like you haven't stepped in the ring not one day of your life. So even with Roberto the Grand, they made his nickname No Mas. Like that was crucial. Like, hey, like we're gonna call you No Mas because you can continue in this fight. So that's what we look at you as a nothing. So that physically affects people in a certain way. Some people can flip it and say, I'm gonna use this to fuel my fire, and some people it's just that sprinkling system that puts out everything they had going for them. So I want everybody, when you actually making your comments about the way somebody fights or the way you feel somebody fought, or even if they lost you some money, because I know some of y'all like to gamble, but these guys are honestly putting their life on the line. They're fighting with their life at stake. And they're going to go put, nobody wants to lose. Nobody goes in there like, hey, I'm going to lose today. Everybody's going in there with the hopes of winning. So just know they put their 100% effort into it, and just be a little bit more kind-hearted.
Yeah, that's amazing. I appreciate that, man. That's some good words right there. Hey, so before we jump into Southpaw, I wanted to ask you, who are your top 5? Do you have just your top 3 if you can? Boxers. Let's hear them.
Of all time?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go Roy Jones Jr., all-time favorite. Then we got Sweet Pea right behind it. Right behind Sweet Pea, we want to go into newer age. I like Jared Ennis. Jared Ennis is a fierce fighter. Right behind Jared, which a lot of people argue with me, he should be in the front. But I just like Jared Ennis' style a little bit better. We're going Terrence Crawford. Last but not least, Javante Davis. That's my 5.
Nice. So you like the Mike Tyson biopic, but you don't got him in your top 5?
Man, he's a hit. I'm a fan of the sweet sides now. I like the slippery guys. I like people that's a little bit crappy. I like the knockout punches. It looks good, but I'm a boxer, so I know anybody can time a punch the right time. Anybody, but it's different when you're just slippery and you just making this guy look like he never even went to train to fight you.
For sure. So what do you think about this upcoming fight between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul? Like, what do you think about that? How do you think it's going to go down?
Man, I definitely think Jake Paul has earned his title as saying I'm a boxer, but you gotta understand his levels to everything. He earned the title to say that he's a boxer. I still feel like he hasn't earned the title to say I'm a pro boxer, because he hasn't been against anybody. He's going against retired UFC fighters, firefighters, basketball players. I want to see him fight an actual top prospect. So to just skip everybody and say, hey, I'm going to go fight Mike Tyson, you're going to get killed. Even at man, have y'all seen Mike Tyson's pad work videos? Have y'all seen how this man is moving. And it only takes one. It only takes uno for Jake to feel it and say, hey, I don't know what I signed up for. Hopefully it still goes on. I was looking forward to buying the tickets. I know they pushed it back, but I don't know if they completely canceled it. But as far as I know, it's postponed.
Yeah, it's postponed. I think Mike got sick or something like that. So yeah, good thoughts out to him and his crew. I hope he can recover. I really would like to see the fight because I think it's one of those things that's like a perfect storm of like this kind of maybe the culture now, like this whole like insta famous, this fast road to stardom and to fandom, and then like I feel like it's like the old school and the new school kind of in a ring together, like and I just want to, I mean, of course I'm a 90s 80s baby, 90s teenager. Like Mike Tyson's the guy. Like Mike Tyson was the man back then, and I want to see him succeed in his old age in a point where he's not fighting for his life like where he was back then, and he's not in that dark place that he's talked about in interviews since then. He's in a place where he's in a positive place, he's in a good place, but he's still got that killer instinct. He's still got that fire. He still wants to perform. He still's got the body, the strength, the punches. Like I want to see him succeed as kind of like that hero rising from the ashes against this kid that's kind of this young guy that thinks he can do everything and thinks he's owed everything. It's kind of like that's how it feels like the fight is kind of in my head. That's what's on the line here is this kind of like instant famous rise to the top versus someone who really put in the work, coming back and giving an opportunity to be on the stage in front of thousands and millions of people again. So that's why I'm going to support the fight because I want to see Mike get his due. But we'll see. I hope it goes down. It'll be fun.
Hopefully it happens, man. And
Yeah.
I say with the press conference, man, he was a little too friendly, man. I was looking for old Mike. Like, I'll bite your grandchildren. Like, he's like, good luck to you, Jake. I was like, no, Mike, tell him you're gonna kill him.
Right, for sure. But man, I mean, kind of going back to some of those interviews and stuff, man. He's a philosopher at this point, man. He's dropping bars, and it's just like, wow. I know there's one really cool interview with Mike Tyson and Eminem that just is so amazing. But then there's some others too where Mike's just talking about where he was mentally back then and all I mean it's what we see in movies, in boxing movies in general, is that rise to fame comes with a lot of baggage. And if you're not careful, it can drive you to, like you mentioned, depression. It can drive you to making bad decisions, drive you to making poor choices. And that's kind of what we get in Southpaw, is this successful fighter that ends up getting in his head, feeling too big for his britches, taking the fight kind of outside of the ring and losing a lot because of it. So tell us a little bit about Southpaw. What's the story there?
Man, Southpaw, let's talk about it. Billy Hope, he's a lightweight fighter. The movie's called Southpaw, but he's actually an orthodox fighter. But the end of the movie kind of tells us why it goes into Southpaw. But man, overall with Southpaw, Billy is a hot-headed fighter. He's on the rise to glory. He's going up to the top, man. But he has his nemesis. He has this guy that's constantly calling him out, man. And every time they see each other, it's smoke. Right then and there, their class. So he's going into this event, man. Him and the guy have some exchangeable words. The guy, brother, pulls out a gun, lets off a shot. Scene clears. We're wondering who got shot. It's Billy's wife, man. The most, man, it's one of those scenes that just yanks at you right then and there the moment you watch it. Because, man, his wife the whole time is telling him to just relax, focus on what he needs to focus on. He has a family, be a family man. Don't be so hot-tempered. And her last moments is like just looking at him in pure sorrow, like, I didn't want this to happen, and he didn't want it to happen. After all that happens, man, Billy has a hard time, like we spoke about earlier. Depression hits him hard. He doesn't know what's going on, man. Basically, he's just talking about not wanting to be in the world anymore, basically. So he goes and rams his car right into a tree. His daughter finds him. He wakes up from his coma, and realizes that basically the government's trying to take his daughter away now because he doesn't have a mom. Dad's not really stable. He having mental problems. Government's trying to snatch up that kid. They actually do snatch up that kid. So then Billy needs to go look for a new gym. Everything that he had, the whole empire he built has crumbled. So now he has to start back to the top. He goes to the gym. He's looking for a membership. They offer him a general position. They say, hey, you can clean up this gym. You can mop these floors for us. He's like, no way. Basically, he ends up having to go back and accept that job. He meets this kid, man. Another heart. Man, as I'm about to cry as I'm going, he's cleaning up the gym, meets this kid. He started giving him training tips. Him and the kid makes a real good, tight relationship. The kid was getting abused by his father at home. So he's still just working his way up the ranks. He's not really worried about training his city right now. He's focused on trying to get his daughter back and do the right thing. Fighting is not necessarily in his forte, but then he finds out that he can have a possible dream opportunity to fight to get his way back in ranks. He just needs to get in shape. So he asked the owner of the gym to get him in shape. He's not going for it at first. He's not with it. He's saying he only wants to have the fight out of anger because you got to understand the person he's supposed to be fighting is the reason his wife is dead in his eyes. So once he finds out that that's the reason that he wants to fight, of course the coach is going to say, hey, no, you got to get your head on straight. Then we found out my good guy, the kid that he was training with, man, I forgot his name. I cannot think of it. You remember it? Bobby?
No.
It was something like, I want to say Bobby. I'm 99.5% sure his name was Bobby.
I don't see it here. Yeah, let's go with that.
We're gonna say it's Bobby. Bobby died. Bobby got shot by his father. And that just, man, from there, the movie just sparks fireworks. That was like the perfect way to just send us, it sent us down a hill because we went down, we went up a little bit, and it said, let's shoot him right back down, another death. After that, man, he goes into the best shape of his life, man. He goes back for vengeance, man. They go have this massive class battle of the Titans. Who really wants it, man? Billy's fighting for his life, man. It's one round that really scares us where he's not doing so good, but he loses his temper because he says something about his wife, and then he gets back in reality. And this is another thing I want to toast that coach has to control them in those moments where tempers are rising and they really not fighting to box anymore. They're fighting to fight, and it hauls him back in. Now he's boxing again. He gets the knockdown, and he has this scene in the corner that really punched me in the heart again. He just thanks his wife for everything. And after, if you watch the whole movie, after everything he's been through, just to sit there and have that moment, everybody's screaming, everybody's happy for him. He just wants to be alone in the corner and just say a couple words to his wife. That really touched my heart. And then he goes to his daughter. You've been waiting on for him and his daughter. His daughter forgives him because she was upset with him for a little bit about everything that happened. She blamed him for most of the downfalls, but now she's like, Dad, I forgive you. You did it. Beautiful movie, man. Southpaw, one of my favorite boxing movies to this day.
For real, man. I'd seen it once before, and I watched it again for this podcast, and it was Kristen's first time. We both loved it. Like it's the same. It's the really good boxing movies. The fighting is part of the story, but really it's the character development. Fighting is just kind of the backdrop. The real story is how this guy rose up, like all this backstory that you just get just really quickly. Grew up in an orphanage. Boxing was his way out, like you were saying before. Like sometimes that's that way out for some folks. It's his way out. He's successful. He gets to the top, and he's trying to support everybody he can. But then, like, he's still got that. Mentally and emotionally, he's still that broken kid that feels like he's got to fight for everything. That's his only way out. And she's trying to calm him down and say, no, you don't. That was just super, super moving. And I think, Forrest Whitaker, man, did such a great job as this coach through the second half of the movie. And like, it's awesome to me too, like the form of fighting and the way that he fought a certain way. Like, and it was like, they talked about early on that he had to get punched to punch back. Like he had to kind of feel the pain because that was the thing that was going to drive him to win the fight. And she's like, you can't keep doing that. And so to kind of retrain himself using Forrest's style of training and style of boxing, kind of turning his shoulder, make sure he's protecting himself, kind of dodging in and out of the rope, like all of that stuff. And then of course the Southpaw moment, like I kept watching, when is this Southpaw thing going to hit? And then dang, the last 2 seconds of the fight, Southpaw, bah, like,
Ah,
whoa, dang.
he switches that stance up. He's the orthodox fighter. Last second, that's what won the fight for him. Going Southpaw, changing up everything he was used to, like you just said, everything you trained on before. Now you have to go learn it a completely different way and make it work for you. That's what it all means. That's why they call it Southpaw in my eyes.
Yeah, dude, that's amazing. Like, yeah, retraining yourself from what you're used to doing to living life a different way. And like you said, it's not just the boxing, it's everything. It's the whole life. He's got to rethink what it means to live, what it means to be Billy Hope. Man, that can preach, bro. I could just talk about my own life. There comes a point where it's like you have to rethink about what you do. I had to go through counseling, like a year and a half every week, going to counseling to try and figure out, why did I let myself get to this point? What is it that's driving me internally to make these poor decisions? How do I recover from this? How do I build up a new life to become the best version of myself that I want to be? And man, it took work. It took time. And there's still times to this day that I struggle. There's still times to this day that I have moments of relapse, where I might pop back into an old way of thinking. I might start thinking negatively about myself, or I might start relying on that outward adoration. Or then I got to remind myself, no, it's not the external. It's not the external that's going to give me joy. It's my internal. I've got to give myself that sense of value, that sense of purpose, that sense of worth that comes from inside. And it's all, I mean, that's like retraining yourself how to operate in the world. I didn't even put that together, but like, I 100% believe you that the Southpaw reference is less about the boxing and it's more about Billy Hope learning to change the way that he lives his life from the way that he did the first part of his life to now. And that's a beautiful, beautiful idea.
Absolutely, man. It's very touching, man. And I just want to touch on the topic of like just how his life was going so good until that suspension, man. So let's just talk about suspensions in sports. How do you feel about these athletes being able to have the top of the world, everything's going right, but then there's one, not necessarily, it can even be a claim that they did something wrong. Now they're suspended. Now they have to pay these fees. What are your thoughts on just commissions in sports and making them have to pay money?
It's a tough thing to kind of wrap my head around, just because I'm not, I'm not someone that makes all that money. I think like getting fined for something when you do something on the court at basketball, or you do something outside the court and you get fined for doing something you shouldn't be doing, and it's on social media. I think sometimes the league or the authority of the sport, that's all they have at times for discipline, is some sort of monetary, like, well, we can't ground you, we can't send you to your room, but we can hit your bank account and say, okay, because you did that, you owe us this. And it's just kind of a disciplinary thing. I think that the kind of the suspension thing is kind of tough too, because there's a sense where, depending on the weight of the incident, like, what is a justified suspension?
Right.
And then in basketball, it's games. You're suspended for 3 games, you're suspended for 6 games. But in boxing, I mean, to give him a year suspension, that's a long time for a boxer. Like, boxers, that. I mean, it feels like at least 2 or 3 fights, right, in a
Yeah,
year.
at least 2 to 3.
And when that's his only source of income, like, that's the thing. I think maybe that's what you're kind of getting at with the question.
You're basically taking away that livelihood.
Right. Yeah. You got, like, and I think the other thing that this movie does a really good job of is showing the fair weather fans, right? The fair weather friends, that his whole crew kind of turned on him, except for one guy,
Right.
like his best friend, 50 Cent character. Like, he was like, man, that one scene was so heartbreaking, because we as an audience, we know what he's doing. We know that he's putting him in a bad situation, but Billy hasn't figured it out yet. And he's still thinking that he's in his corner. And he's still like, yeah, and I don't know what I would do without you. And we're, as the audience, going, no, he doesn't have your best interest at heart. And then as soon as that fight's over, he loses that fight, and he's in the locker room and there's nobody around, and he's calling for their names. It's like, oh, so, but kind of back to sorry, that kind of took me off course, but back to your point, I think you're absolutely right. There's a sense where there's got to be a balance there because that was his only source of income, and all of the money that he was making was somehow being filtered and shifted to the point that he had nothing. He had no money to live on and survive on. His accountant was being directed, obviously, by this other character to do things with his money that was not in his best interest, and now he's on like living in a 1-bedroom apartment, can't take care of his daughter. Like that suspension did more than just discipline him for an incident. I feel like it ripped away his livelihood. It ripped away his ability to be a functioning human in the world. He had to start from scratch altogether.
All over, man. Overall, I believe Southpaw, if I was to rate it, is definitely a 10 out of 10 film. It constantly drew my attention in, and I could say honestly, man, I'm very short times, man. Like I'm scrolling on TikTok, but Southpaw is one of those films where you're gonna feel like you have to keep watching. And if you stop watching for a second, it's very important because they have all these small details in there. As well as it plays on the strings of your heart. You know, it keeps you emotional with all the scenes they have, but as well, it keeps your heart racing because it has realistic fighting. It has those moments where you're really rooting for them to win and you just want the best for them. So 10 out of 10, if you haven't checked it out, you're missing out. So I strongly suggest you go watch Hands of Stone as well as Southpaw because, man, for my personal review, you can take my word on it, you can take John's word on it, but you won't know until you know for yourself.
For sure, man. For sure. Just last real quick on Southpaw, Jake Gyllenhaal, Rachel McAdams, Forrest Whitaker, 50 Cent, Naomi Harris, some really, really great actors in there. I think this is a Jake Gyllenhaal just masterpiece. Also want to comment on the director, Antoine Fuqua, which was just this was so good. It's got his signature kind of grit. It feels really grounded, but it's just such a great story. I think some of the other ones I love of his, Equalizer, the trilogy, Kristen and I just loved watching those too. So really, really good stuff. I agree with you, man. I think if you haven't seen Southpaw, you're not getting spoiled by this conversation. It's this one or Hands of Stone. The journey is more important than what kind of goes down. Seeing it happen, watching the story unfold, seeing the acting, the character development, the way that these folks are interacting with each other, and the story is just impeccable. So I agree. We do 5 stars here, so I do 5 stars. But that's that's good, man. That's good. Cool, man. Well, what you got going on? Where can people find you online? Where can people catch you in a fight or something?
Well, I'll let y'all know a little bit about me. I am BTDT Boxing Program. BTDT stands for Been There, Done That. Just like these movies represent, I believe every boxer should have their own biopic for that exact reason. Everybody has a story to tell. Everybody has something they've been through and that they're done with. We use our hand to show that we're done with it, but we gotta let you know that we've been through it. So tell your story through your hands. We want to keep growing. My goal is to train, inspire, and to teach. I want you to actually be able to use your mind to make better decisions, but be sharp as well as be light on your feet and making sure that when you're thinking about boxing, you're not thinking about fighting. You're thinking about outsmarting somebody every time we do this. Coach Nick, I work at Maple Avenue Boxing Gym at 2525 Butler Street. As well, you can follow me on Instagram at BTBT Boxing Program. Again, BTDT Boxing Program. And I love to set you up with your first pad work session for free. All you have to do is say, hey, Coach Nick, I seen you on this podcast today, and I'm going to give you 10 minutes of free pad work just for watching the show today.
That's so awesome, man. You're amazing. Yeah, we'll definitely put your info in our podcast notes and we'll share that on our Instagram channel once we get this podcast live. Dude, I can't thank you enough for being on the podcast, man. You brought so much wisdom, so much knowledge to the table, and man, I can't wait to have you back.
I can't wait to be back, man. We got a lot more movies we can watch, so
absolutely.
Let's knock it out.
Sounds good, man. We'll talk to you later.
All right, John.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Movies That Make You podcast, where movies are a catalyst for meaningful conversations. We hope that you'll give us a like, a share. Let us know you were here over at our Instagram at Movies That Make You. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. So until next time, keep watching movies.